Aiming for perfection is admirable. Perfection's wonderful. But is music ever really perfect? Is it possible that aiming for perfect is actually holding you back from your true potential as a musician? In this video, I'm going to explain the two meanings of the word perfect and why focusing on playing the right notes might actually be a mistake. Stay tuned. Hi, my name's Christopher Sutton. I'm the founder and director of Musical U, and this is Musicality Now. Have you been aiming for perfection in your musical life? If so, you might want to be very careful about what you mean by the idea of perfect. Does it mean the best it can be, or does it mean with no mistakes? Believe it or not, there's a big and important difference there. We feel like we should aim for perfection because we take it to mean try to do your best, and there's no problem with that. But in fact, the word perfect means without mistakes or flaws. And when we strive to be our best, we often inadvertently also take on this idea that we must make zero mistakes, which is absolutely not the same thing. Trying to always do your best and improve does not have to mean expecting perfect in the sense of zero mistakes. I think sometimes we forget that music is an art. Art is subjective, meaning how good or bad it is depends on each person's own judgment. Therefore, it fundamentally can't be correct or perfect, so why are we aiming for that? Often, what we subconsciously assume perfect to mean is technically perfect, meaning playing like a robot, but that's not musical. The traditional model of learning music says learning music means learning to play the right notes at the right time, but there are two problems with that. Firstly, it tends to go without saying that the right notes means the notes that someone else has composed and put on a page. Now, I wouldn't for a second belittle the importance of repertoire or all the incredible music that's been written, but we should absolutely reject the notion that that's what music is, or that this is the only meaning of the right notes. That's a topic for a whole other day, how to choose the right notes for yourself. But for today, let's move on to the second problem with learning to play the right notes at the right time. And that's that it ingrains in us that mistakes are bad and we should be ashamed or disappointed in ourselves anytime we make a mistake. Now again, I want to be clear, I'm not saying this viewpoint is entirely wrong. Clearly, if we want to learn to express ourselves with an instrument, we are going to need to learn to make that instrument play the notes we intend for it to play. So it's not the idea of playing what you intend to play that we should take issue with. It's that the attitude to mistakes tends to spread way beyond its usefulness. If you're trying to master the fingering for a certain scale, then sure, treat mistakes as a problem and work on improving your technique so that you make fewer mistakes. But if you let that spread further, it causes more problems than it solves. When I look back on my own music education as a child, although there was plenty of good there, which I'm grateful for, it was 100% oriented towards note-perfect performance of written repertoire and passing exams by not making mistakes. As a result, I saw music as almost exactly analogous to taking a test in mathematics or science. You study hard so that you make as few mistakes as possible. The best people are the people who make fewest mistakes. This led to me being utterly uncreative, and in fact, I believed myself completely incapable of creativity in music. In retrospect, I can see clearly that it dramatically limited my enjoyment and fulfillment in music. Does that sound familiar at all to you? Here's the thing though, that idea that the best people are the people who make fewest mistakes is utterly wrong. Every one of the great musicians we admire have made mistakes. And what's important to note is that many of them have not only made mistakes during recording sessions for the albums we consider the best of all time, they have chosen to leave those mistakes in the recording in many cases. There's a duff piano chord in the intro to Roxanne by The Police. There's coughing in a classic Pink Floyd track, and a telephone rings in a Steely Dan hit. There's badly timed starts in vocals by The Who and Nirvana. We've covered the Beatles extensively on the show, and the backstories to their best songs are often riddled with happenstance and accidents that they choose to leave in. Did they do that because they were lazy and couldn't be bothered to go back and play the right notes at the right times? No. They did it because they understood that music is a creative art form where there are ultimately no right answers. They listened to their performance, not asking, did I play this technically perfectly, but did I create good music? As a result, they were able to look past the apparent wrong notes and mistakes, and see that what they had created was still great art, in spite of, or perhaps even because of, those so-called imperfections. Nature is not perfect. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's incredible, but is it perfect? Not really. So why are you aiming for perfection in your music? Here's the thing, not only is perfection not attainable, and not something you should expect or want to attain, aiming for perfection is actually reducing your chances of becoming great. There's an age-old quote that perfect is the enemy of good, and that's definitely the case in music. When I interviewed award-winning composer Sabrina Peña-Young on this show, she called herself a recovering perfectionist, and explained how she'd had to unlearn much of the play no wrong notes ever mentality she had grown up with, in order to grow into her full potential as a musician and composer. And who do you think improves faster as a songwriter? The person who spends 6 months trying to perfect one song, or the person who writes one song every day for 6 months, learning from each one, improving each aspect of their songwriting with every one? Hit songwriters who've appeared on this show, like Alex Forbes, Matt Blick, and Mark Corley, all emphasize the importance of regularly writing and finishing songs as the way to improve, not endlessly polishing every single one to perfection. There's another huge hidden danger of perfectionism. Not only does it bring your progress grinding to a halt, it can also set you up with a very fragile mindset in music, destroying your confidence. As top symphonic horn player Mark Gelfo put it in his masterclass here at Musical U, perfectionism in practice leads to debilitating stage fright. We'll talk in another episode about recovering from mistakes during a live performance, but I'm sure I don't need to explain why a perfectionist attitude can trigger stage fright and lead to a vicious cycle of being nervous, making mistakes, and then being more nervous for your next performance, and so on. So aiming for perfection is not necessary to do your best. It's holding you back from learning quickly, and it can produce a very fragile and vulnerable sense of identity as a musician. Start to throw away any perfectionist tendencies you might have, and you'll be amazed how much faster you can improve, and how much more enjoyment and fulfillment you experience in music. Now, I know after all that you might still be thinking, if I want to be the best I can be, I need to aim for perfect. So I'll leave you with a question to ponder. Can you aim for perfection without requiring or even ever expecting perfection? And if so, what effect might that have on your musical life? Oh hey, one more thing. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like it on YouTube, and if you haven't already, please also subscribe to our channel there. That's going to help make sure you get all our latest videos as soon as they come out, and it also helps us reach more people, which means more episodes, better guests, and everybody wins. So please take a second to like this video and hit subscribe.